Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan here with my wonderful wife, Laura.
Hello.
And we're here just to do a quick review of the new All Wild card game.
Or Uno, all wild.
It depends on where you come from.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a weird one. Everything is a wild.
Which you'd think would be really interesting, but not really.
Well, we'll get to that. It's a little bit different. So this is a brand new version of Uno or Uno, whatever you call it. This was from Target.
Target for $10, yes, in Australia. Yeah, so you can pretty much play any card at any time because that's the whole idea of wild card and the regular Uno. You can play on any colour or number.
So obviously this takes out that need to match a colour. Well, then you think, well, hang on, what am I matching to play a card? Well, nothing. Nothing at all.
No. So there's actually what I think is a bit of a major flaw with the game is that rather than a bit of strategy and things like that, it all comes down to what you sort of get dealt with at the start and then just hope the other player, has less good things in their hand.
Essentially, yeah. So you start the game in the same way that you would the regular version by dealing out 7 cards to each player. It's 2 to 10 players.
Yes, we found this game was almost unplayable with 2 people.
It's not very interesting with 2, yeah. So would highly recommend up the end of the other end of the scale for them. So we're not going to do a full playthrough, but how about I was going to say we're sort of going to set up a game and kind of show you what's what. So
there's a couple of classic returning cards like skips and reverses and a couple of more unique cards, but functionality wise they do something very similar to already existing cards.
So you would set it up in the exact same way with, like I said, 7 cards each. You have a draw pile and then you have one that you turn over at the start to play.
It also says if it's a card with a function on it, ignore that first card and just act as a regular wild card when you first start.
Yeah, so we happen to have turned this one over. This is the reverse card.
Just a reverse.
A regular one, as you can see, they do still print all of the 4 colours as though you need to pick one. The instructions say you can still call out a colour, but it doesn't affect the game in any way.
If you feel like, being fancy or funny, you can call out a colour, but it doesn't do anything, as Laura said.
Yep, so no reverse needed, no actions on it needed, as Nathan mentioned. Then we would look at our cards.
Yeah, so pretty much, how about, let me just get a better angle.
And look, they're all wilds, every single one, but they just have different symbols on them.
So pretty much you just have to look at the symbols rather than the actual number or colour. Shall we go through each one?
Well, sure. So, for example, I just have another, reverse here, so I could just put that on. I could then say yellow, but of course, there are no yellow cards or red or blue or green, so.
So, we'll tell you the core rules, how they explain it, and then we'll say how we usually
How
play.
we would think we would play.
And the manual also doesn't mention some things in other words, there's a lot of house rules need to be discussed before playing with this one.
Yes. So essentially we would go backwards and forwards. So say it was my turn first, I might play that, for example.
Reverse.
Or it's just a reverse. But of course there's only 2 of us. So even if we go in reverse order, it's still kind of the same because there's only 2 of us.
Yeah, so then I'd be like, oh, what have I got in my hand? Well, a skip functions the next player's turn.
So that's a regular skip. So my turn would be skipped, and it would be your turn again.
And if there was 3 players, it would go to the player to the left or right of Laura, depending which way you're going.
Another returning sort of regular card is just a normal wild. Literally, you can put the card down. It does nothing because, there's no colours.
When everything's wild, nothing is.
Yeah, nothing's a colour when everything's wild.
So, obviously, you've got, those, put those down.
Yeah, so we obviously don't play in chunks. We're just showing examples. Now, the other cards that we happen to have picked up here, this is a really interesting one that you have. It's a draw 2.
Target to draw 2. So, if you're playing a 2-player game, that's pointless because you can specifically target any player to draw 2. So if you've only got 2 players, obviously the other player that you're playing against is going to cop it. But if you've got 3 or more, you can choose anyone, even if they're not next in line.
Yeah, so if someone happens to be, they've said Uno, and no one else has, only 1 card left, you're obviously going to target the person with the least amount of cards and have them pick up 2. So that could be quite a useful one, but there's only 2 adults in our family, so yeah, it's kind of pointless in a two-player game.
So, like I said, this is technically possible to play 2 players, but I wouldn't.
There is actually just a draw 2 card as well. I'm just going to see if I can.
It looks almost
find
identical,
you
except
one.
instead of having the target.
Oh my goodness, there's so many, as you can see, just plain wilds with nothing on
There you
them.
go.
Yeah.
There's a draw 2.
So it's just that's a draw 2 for whoever's after you. The targeted one, like we said, is just the same in a 2-player game. So yeah.
Classic draw 4. The next person ahead of me draws 4 cards.
Yep. Then we have, so I picked up a draw 4 as well. Then we have this one, which is the swap hands.
Wild Force Swap.
Yes. So if you put this one down, you have to choose another player and exchange your entire hand with them. You do not get a choice. You have to do it. So if you've got this card and you don't want to exchange hands, it's probably going to be the last one you play.
Is it Flip or Dark Side? Whichever one's got a very similar card in it, which you have to swap hands too. So
yeah, which is more beneficial in that game than this one, because we found that we kind of just went backwards and forwards a lot, and we always had kind of the same amount of cards. So swapping cards didn't really do a great deal. Because there is so many regular wilds, I got dealt a hand with, I think, 6 plain wilds with no actions and like 1 reverse, which does nothing in a 2-player game. So I lost because Nathan had like 1 draw 2.
Yeah, and
that was what won the game for him. So
regular games can sometimes go on for quite a while, depending on how many players and combination of the cards and a whole bunch of other factors. This one, we found you dealt 7 and you took turns putting cards down until you put them all down. There was no picking up because you couldn't play a card or anything.
Because you can always play something. And like I said, you just went backwards and forwards a lot, unless people had the draw 4, which I don't think we got dealt any of, because there's not that many. Like, look at how many just plain ones in a row there are. They do nothing for you.
Now let's discuss some of the more.
Hang on. We're missing a card. We're missing a card that we haven't discussed yet, and there's so few of them. I can't find one.
The double skip card.
It is the double skip card. You can start talking about it while I look for it.
So the double skip card functions like a regular skip card, except it skips 2 players. So, so if I'm playing and I've got 3 other players, 3 players playing in total, I play it. It skips you, skips your friend, goes back to me.
Yeah. Which could be quite useful if you do have more people. But obviously it's a 2-player game.
So if you're playing, if I'm playing just me and Laura and I play that, it skips Laura's turn, then it skips my turn that goes back to Laura, which effectively just makes it a regular wild card.
Which does nothing, because of course my turn will be after Nathan's. So I feel like they missed the mark with how many people. I think they needed this one to be at least 3 players, because it's just a bit bland otherwise. And I don't know.
So let's talk about some house rules.
Okay.
So, at least when we play, we play that you can stack cards. So if I play a draw 2, and then it's your turn, and you happen to play, you've got a draw 2 in your hand, you could play that, so then the person next to you, say our son, would have to draw 4 cards.
2 plus 2. That's not a standard rule in Uno, but I played like that as a kid. You did too, so we've just kind of carried that through.
This manual doesn't specify you can stack them one way or the other.
No.
So we're going to assume that you can't stack them in this game as per standard.
Yeah, but again, we would add that house rule for us personally, especially when you don't get like a lot of those cards. If they're the only things you get dealt that kind of affect the game sometimes, because there's so many plain ones, you kind of want to be able to stack them just to get something going.
Yeah, it's some sort of strategy. We also played in a 2-player game, a reverse just gives the original player another turn, acts the same as like a skip.
Yeah, which obviously isn't standard in the game, but it helped us kind of do more in the game, because otherwise the reverse kind of
Otherwise we're just taking turns 1-1, and then whoever sort of went first almost came one.
Almost one every time, yeah.
There is scoring as per usual. Obviously, you can play some rounds, and I think if you get the first person to not get to like the certain amount wins. So you don't want to get.
You want the points.
You want the points.
You want the points. So I don't know what you're on about. So you want to get the points. So if you are scoring, it is the same essentially as regular Uno, minus obviously the values of the number cards, because there are no number cards in this version. So what you do is, like, say I won the hand, I would get the points of whatever cards were left in Nathan's hand.
Oh, because I used to play where the person who had the cards in the hand, they'd get those cards points added to their own score.
But that's not.
And if they got to 500, they were eliminated.
I mean, you can do it either way, but that's not not how it's meant to be. So if you have just a plain wild card, they are worth 20 points. So if Nathan, maybe you want to hold that, you have one of those, I would get 20 points for that towards my score. Any wild action card, which is any that have like a symbol in the middle, are 50 points each. So it's not going to take you anywhere near as long in this version to get to 500 as it is in a regular one, because you're always going to have a minimum of 20 points per card that you
in
have.
The regular one, the number ones are there just face value.
Yeah, so you could end with like a 0 in your hand and get no points, or, you know.
Yeah,
when you get to 500, you're the winner. So, because you get the points of the other people that you beat. So,
that's pretty much it. I mean, with 2 players, it's almost unplayable. Well, it's playable, it's
bland.
just boring and bland.
Yeah.
With more than 2 players, it's okay. We did play with our 2 boys, so we had 4 people.
Yeah.
And it was okay, but the games didn't last very long, and we found that if you got dealt a dud hand at the start, you were pretty much knackered. There was no way to sort of recover from it.
Because the two main issues are you need more people, because some of the cards work best with more players, and the other issue is there are so many plain wilds. So many.
Get Monopoly, not Monopoly.
What?
Too many Monopolies. Get Uno or Uno Flip.
Uno Flip is good fun.
Is a pretty good one. That's a good one. This one is... I just stick with normal Uno.
Unless you've got a really big family, then you might have a totally different experience. But yeah. If you enjoyed watching this video, give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comment section down below if you have picked this one up. What did you think? Hopefully you enjoyed it more than we did. Maybe it's just not for us.
We got sucked in and we thought it'd be really cool. Everything's wild, but it just,
Yeah. Hit that subscribe button and check back soon. We have videos every single Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.